Part 1, her love affair with coffee, and how it almost broke her body. For years, Mia had measured her mornings by the strength of her coffee. Before brushing her teeth, before speaking to anyone, before even thinking clearly, there was coffee. It wasn't just a drink, it was survival. At first, it was 1 cup, then 2, then a third by late morning when the emails piled up and her body sagged under deadlines. She wasn't addicted, she told herself. She just needed it to wake up, to function. The truth was harder to swallow. Without coffee, Mia's mornings were a foggy mess. Headaches behind her eyes, a dry scratchiness in her throat, a heaviness in her limbs. Still, she kept pushing, kept pouring. Caffeine first, everything else. Body, mind, health could wait. But over time, the cracks showed. By noon, she was jittery, her hands trembling slightly as she typed. Her heart sometimes raced for no clear reason. By 3 p.m., a crushing fatigue would descend, worse than before. She'd pour another cup. She'd push through the crash. It's just stress, she told herself. Everyone's tired. Everyone drinks coffee, it's normal. But normal didn't feel normal anymore. She started waking up with dry skin and cracked lips. Dark circles bloomed under her eyes, no matter how much she slept. Some days her stomach rebelled, twisting into nausea after just 1 sip of her beloved brew. And yet, every morning she reached for the cup anyway, because what else was there? Caffeine is a stimulant that temporarily masks fatigue, but if consumed on an empty stomach, especially when the body is dehydrated after sleep, it can lead to increased cortisol production, stress hormone, dehydration, headaches, digestive upset, and energy crashes later in the day. One Monday morning, after a particularly rough weekend, Mia stood at her kitchen counter, hands wrapped around her oversized mug, staring at the black swirl inside. For the first time in years, she wondered, is coffee helping me or hurting me? And in that quiet question, a door cracked open, just wide enough for something different to slip in. Something small. Something she hadn't tried before. Not giving up coffee. Not quitting caffeine cold turkey. Just changing the order of things. Part 2, the small shift, water before coffee. It wasn't a grand resolution. It wasn't a vow to give up caffeine forever or embark on some strict detox. It was simpler than that. Mia just decided 1 glass of water first. Before anything else, the first morning she shuffled into the kitchen like always, bleary-eyed, reaching instinctively for the coffee maker. But she caught herself, paused. She filled a tall glass with cold water from the fridge and stood by the window, the early light filtering through half-drawn curtains. The first few sips were mechanical. The last ones almost refreshing. That's it, she thought. Nothing heroic. Just water first. Then and only then did she brew her coffee. Drinking water immediately upon waking helps rehydrate the body after 7 to 8 hours of moisture loss, kickstart digestion, and prepare the kidneys and liver for metabolizing caffeine more efficiently. Starting the day hydrated reduces the spike in cortisol often caused by drinking coffee alone on an empty stomach. At first, Mia didn't notice much. The coffee still tasted good. The work still piled up. The deadlines didn't magically disappear. But by the 3rd day, she realized something subtle. The morning headaches she used to shrug off, the ones that crept in by 10 a.m., weren't showing up. Her hands didn't feel as shaky after her first cup. And there was something else too. Something even smaller, but somehow bigger. She didn't feel desperate. She didn't chug her coffee like a drowning woman clinging to a life raft. She drank it because she enjoyed it, not because she needed it to survive. The first week, she missed her water ritual twice, rushing into meetings, forgetting, grabbing coffee first in a panic. Both days, by early afternoon, she crashed hard. Fuzzy brain, heart pounding, a hollow fatigue that no amount of caffeine could fix. The contrast was jarring. It was like her body was whispering, "Water first, please." So she kept trying 1 glass every morning. Before the coffee, before the phone. Before the world asked anything of her. When the body is properly hydrated, The brain functions more clearly, energy metabolism improves, and caffeine is absorbed more gradually, leading to steadier energy levels and lower anxiety throughout the day. After 2 weeks, bigger changes arrived. Her skin, once dry and tight, looked softer, more alive. She didn't feel bloated or sluggish after breakfast. Her afternoon energy dips became less violent, more like a gentle slope than falling off a cliff. She slept deeper. Her moods, once swinging wildly between wired and weary, smoothed out. And most importantly, Mia felt more connected to herself, like her body and mind were moving together again, not in opposite directions. It wasn't magic. It wasn't a miracle cure. It was just one small habit honored consistently. One simple act of putting herself first, even if only for a minute or two each day. One glass of water, one sip toward wholeness. Sometimes she still laughed at herself, at how fiercely she had clung to coffee, as if it alone could rescue her from the chaos of her life. But now she understood. Coffee didn't save her, she saved herself. One choice at a time, one morning at a time. Part 3, the morning she forgot, and the crash that reminded her why it matters. It happened like most mistakes on a rushed morning. The alarm blared later than usual. Emails flooded in before she even left her bed. Her heart already raced before her feet touched the floor. In the frenzy, Mia skipped her ritual. No water ... no pause. Just straight to the coffee maker, clutching the mug like a lifeline. At first, it felt normal, familiar. The hot bitterness flooded her senses, masking the exhaustion gnawing at the edges. For the first hour, she powered through her inbox like a machine. Adrenaline, caffeine, momentum, the old trio. But by mid-morning, the cracks showed. Her mouth felt dry no matter how much she sipped. A throbbing tension tightened behind her eyes. Her hand shook slightly when she reached for her second cup. And worse, a creeping anxiety she hadn't felt in weeks wrapped around her chest like a coiled spring. Just a stressful day, she told herself. Just tired. But deep down, she knew. Her body had gone from nourished to neglected in a single choice. One glass of water? That was all she had skipped. And yet, the difference was staggering. Dehydration exacerbates the negative side effects of caffeine. Increased heart rate, heightened anxiety, headaches, brain fog, and reduced cognitive clarity. Even a mild 1 to 2% loss in body water can significantly impair mood, memory, and attention. By noon, Mia felt like a puppet whose strings had been yanked in too many directions. No amount of coffee could ground her. No deep breaths could untangle the buzzing in her mind. It wasn't about the caffeine itself. It was about what she had forgotten. To care for her body before she demanded things from it. That afternoon, sitting at her desk with her forehead pressed against her palms, Mia made a decision. Not a vow to quit coffee. Not a resolution to become some perfect wellness guru. Just a quiet promise. Water first, always, no matter how late, no matter how busy, no matter how small it seemed. Because she understood now. The water wasn't just about hydration. It wasn't even just about caffeine management. It was about respect. It was about starting her day by giving, not taking. Starting with a gift, not a demand. And that tiny, almost invisible shift, that act of kindness toward herself, changed everything. Tiny habits aren't about willpower or discipline. They're about building tiny bridges of trust between who we are and who we want to become. Each small act says, I believe you are worth the care, even when the world rushes, even when you forget. The next morning, Mia woke up groggy again. Deadlines still looming, problems still waiting, but she didn't rush. She padded to the kitchen, filled her glass, and drank, slowly, intentionally, honoring the ritual that had saved her more than she realized. Then and only then, she brewed her coffee. And this time, it tasted different, richer, smoother. Not a crutch, but a companion. Because she had already given her body what it needed most. And somehow, that made all the difference. Part 4, a new beginning. Stronger, softer, and wiser. The next few weeks unfolded quietly, like the slow unfurling of new leaves after a long winter. No grand announcements. No overnight transformations. Just small, steady changes. Every morning, Mia chose herself first, before coffee, before emails, before the world demanded her energy, one glass of water. One small act of respect. One reminder that her body wasn't a machine to push harder, it was a home to care for. Some mornings were rushed. Some mornings she was tired, distracted, tempted to skip, but she didn't. Not because she feared the consequences, though she remembered the crash vividly, but because she remembered how good it felt to begin with kindness. Building habits based on positive emotion and self-compassion, rather than guilt or fear, increases habit retention rates dramatically. In long-term studies, habits anchored to internal rewards, I feel better, rather than external rewards, I should do this, are 2 to 3x more likely to stick. Over time, the changes deepened. Her energy became more stable throughout the day. The anxious edge that caffeine used to sharpen melted away. Her skin glowed with a natural vitality she hadn't seen in years. She approached her work with clear focus, less frantic, more intentional. But even beyond the physical shifts, something more profound happened. Mia's relationship with herself changed. She stopped treating her body like an obstacle to productivity. She stopped seeing health as something to optimize or hack. She started seeing it as a conversation, a partnership. Each glass of water, each tiny act of care, whispered, I am not a project to fix. I'm a life to nurture. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. There were still mornings when she stumbled, when the old rush pulled at her ankles. But now she had something she didn't before, a ritual, a choice, a path back to herself. Tiny habits aren't about controlling life. They're about anchoring yourself to something steady, something soft, sustainable, and real, even when life feels overwhelming. One Sunday morning, Mia sat at her kitchen table, sunlight pouring across the wood grain. She held her coffee in one hand and her empty water glass in the other. She smiled. Not because she had fixed herself, not because she had mastered some perfect routine, but because finally she trusted herself to begin again. Every day, one glass, one sip, one act of kindness. Again and again and again. And that, she realized, was the real healing. Not the absence of struggle, not the absence of tired days, but the presence of a new relationship with herself, patient, present, loving. Tiny habits, big healing. Always. Tiny habits, big healing. Episode 3, Closing Voiceover. Sometimes change doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers. One glass of water, one small pause before the rush. One quiet choice to put yourself first, even for just a moment. In Mia's story, it wasn't about quitting coffee or chasing perfection. It was about honoring her body before asking anything of it. It was about trust, not control, care, not punishment. What tiny act of kindness could you offer yourself today? Maybe it's a glass of water, maybe it's a slow stretch. Maybe it's simply pausing to breathe before the day sweeps you away. Whatever it is, know this: tiny habits, big healing, always.